the Phoenix Mercury garnered themselves a thrilling win over the Atlanta Dream in their matchup from Saturday. And a lot of things that we saw, particularly in the final 5 minutes of the game, were with Kahleah Copper having the ball in her hands. And I think as they continue to suss out and organize their offense, particularly in closing moments, seeing who Nate Tibbetts decides to have the ball, initiating offense and just generally running primary actions to either score or facilitate through advantages is going to be interesting to watch for. We know Diana Taurasi can do it. Obviously, Natasha Cloud can do it. Also, obviously, Kahleah Copper can do it. On this particular night, it was Kahleah Copper over and over and over, whether that be in the floor of the game, in the crunch time, or also out of timeouts, where Nate Tibbetts decided to continue to keep the ball in her hands. And she was up to task. Had a career-high 38 points, and even more particularly in the third quarter, she had 16, and she was just putting a ton of pressure on the rim, putting a ton of pressure on the defense, passing off of that, reading the defense, and making passes to force rotations, and also navigating to the free throw line ad nauseum. But I want to look at particularly in the final, basically 3 minutes of the game, where they went to the same action with Kahleah Copper initiating offense over and over, and that's stack or Spain pick and roll. And this is just simply 3 players involved in pick and roll in the middle third of the floor, and 2 players flanked strong to the baseline in the deep corners and having abundance of space for her to drive and read the defense and play off of. So let's go ahead and dive into these reps. As they went to this exact action 5 separate times, she was able to generate a positive result on 4 of those 5 attempts. And let's dive into it and just take a look at what was going on with Kahleah Copper in that fourth quarter. All right, first play we're going to be seeing, obviously, in the stack formation, they're going to be getting to the middle third of the floor. They started from the outer third, and then she works her way towards the middle third of the floor from that angle, just to kind of make it tougher for the defense to navigate it. So we see her obviously handling at the top of the screen here in the top left corner, guarded by Allisha Gray. You're going to see Natasha Mack come over to set the screen on ball for Kahleah Copper. She does a great job, as I pause it there, using misdirection to gain leverage to get downhill, also making the job for the screener that much easier with this type of separation. You can see the weight shifted from Gray from her left leg to her right leg, and Kahleah Copper going obviously the opposite direction. So that helps her in getting downhill. And I think the biggest thing, well, one of the biggest things in Kahleah's growth last season was her play and pick and roll and the pace and the changes of pace. Not all that just one speed, not all that just fast, or all just slow to fast or fast to slow, but mixing in all of these different pace changes to not just create the advantage initially like we see here at the still frame, but to also then maintain the advantage as she gets into using the screen. And just watch as she turns the corner and gets downhill. As we see on the back end, the back screen coming from Diana Taurasi doing a great job screening Max opponent, the person that's matched up with her, and Cheyenne Parker. So you see the screen up top, then we see the second screen around the free throw line. And again, we talk about the spacing and the manipulation of it. Both wings are clear in this particular formation for the exact play. And you see the space and abundance of it that Kahleah is able to drive into. And again, look at the secondary pace change and how that allows for her to then get downhill and generate free throw attempts. But again, it's all just Kahleah's growth, playing in space, understanding how to manipulate and how to just play at multiple speeds. This second hesitation right here really allows for her to then take an aggressive angle with Crystal Dangerfield as the only defender that's in the paint, and then able to, again, steal the angle on leverage and just be just big, and gets up a very aggressive attempt at the basket, free throws as a result. And then they go back to it again. It looks a little bit different just because of the defense and how Allisha Gray, and they switched the personnel. Also want to make note of that. It's Crystal Dangerfield at the point of attack this time on Kahleah Copper. Allisha Gray is now guarding Diana Taurasi. Taurasi's being top locked, so that makes the flow into this action a little bit, or a lot more muddy rather, than it was the first rep that we talked about. Nonetheless, we're going to see them get back into the formation, and we see Kahleah Copper decide to go to her left hand this time. You can see Dangerfield being a little bit more directional than Allisha Gray was on the initial possession. Kahleah takes that, and she takes the angle, rejects the screen, and as you can see, her reading the defense, I talked about that in the open. This is the big step in growth for her. Playing off the field is something she's always done, but being able to also read the next layer of defense past the primary defender and also react off of that is something that really grew leaps and bounds last season with the role that she was in usage for the Chicago Sky, running a lot of pick and roll. The Sky ran the most pick and roll possessions across the entire WNBA last season, and she was spearheading a whole lot of that, and in this particular action as well. And we see her here just reading the low defender, peeling off of Sophie Cunningham, anticipating this drive to the left hand from Kahleah Copper, jumping all the way over the help line as a low man. So now Kahleah Copper's essentially got two to the ball. And this is where she's really grown, just understanding the types of defense, the types of help, the types of support that she typically sees when she has the ball and she gets ready to turn the corner to get downhill, and having a wherewithal, awareness to see it, but the ability to pass it and to make a pass that a player can then either create an advantage off of or execute within the advantage that's generated from Kahleah. And we see just that here. Great bounce pass to Sophie Cunningham, and that's bottoms up. And then next rep here, again, we're going to see them back in stack formation, Spain pick and roll. Sophie Cunningham's running the baseline to re-space to get back into the positions that they need her in for this play to be optimized in spacing. Again, Diana Taurasi setting that back screen on Natasha Max matchup, obviously being Tina Charles here. Great job, patience-wise, getting some contact there and then slipping out and not going too soon from Diana Taurasi. That part is important in the process of this play. In addition to, again, Kahleah Copper and her pace changes. We see all of that blend together here. Kai's able to then, again, get downhill. Smaller Crystal Dangerfield waiting behind Diana Taurasi after the screen. They go with the late switch, almost like putting three to the ball, essentially. They get the peel off from the corner, as you see Ryan Howard peeling off of Sophie Cunningham. Tina Charles continues to go downhill with Kahleah to try to get up rim protection, all to no avail, and Kai's able to elude Dangerfield, keeps it high, finishes off the glass. And then this final rep here to put the nail in the coffin in this game. They go right back to it yet again. And we see her again, the pace changes, the pace changes, the pace changes. In addition to setup for the screen, great screen this time, maybe the best screen in this five slate rep of this particular action from Natasha Mack. Absolutely nails. Ryan Howard allows for Kahleah to get downhill, turn that corner. And again, we see Diana Taurasi almost in ring around the rosy fashion, just occupying the attention of Alicia Gray. And because of how Diana Taurasi manipulates the leverage here, there is not a single dream defender that's in the paint. And in addition to that, I want to also mention the cleverness of the setup this time. So we saw Kahleah Copper get into it a couple of times, just initiating the offense. One time they did hand it off between Natasha Cloud and her. And we see again another handoff between her and Natasha Cloud. But this time, look at where Natasha spaces. She stays higher up the floor rather than being in the deep corner. And on this particular rep, that's important to note because it takes away that low man rotation. And because there's no low man rotation, in addition to all the action happening so high up the floor, there's not a single defender in the paint as Kahleah Copper crosses the free throw line. And by the time the next defender does get to the paint, if you're even a half step or a beat behind Kahleah Copper when she turns the corner to get downhill, you're beat. Advantage Mercury, career high night scoring for Kahleah Copper.